10, 9, 8. You guys ready for the best 30 minutes of your life?
Sure.
All right, well, welcome. What?
Are we supposed to look at you, or do we have to look at that green light?
Green light.
You just do whatever your little heart desires. But what I really want to talk about is the fact that my parents just recently had a surgery that conjoined them. So my mother only has a left arm and my father only has a right. Wave, guys. Oh, look, they just never wanted to leave each other's side. All right, so since you guys have to sign off on all the content that I put on Love and Respect Now, you guys are the mothership, Love and Respect. And you wrote a groundbreaking new book. It came out actually quite a few years ago. By the way, congratulations, Dad, on it being a New York Times bestseller this fall.
Thank you.
That was a surprise. We didn't find out till months after it happened, but hey. Just a little nudge to the publisher there. Anyways, we are, because of that, you know that I've been doing some interviews of different couples that work together. And I figure, why not just go and interview the mothership, mother-fathership?
That's what I was just going to say. Maybe you should call it the mother-fathership.
Mother-fathership, yes. So on that, which one of you would be Captain Hook and which would be Smead?
I'm Smead.
I don't remember the movie.
Don't you stop me, Smead.
Tell him my
Smead, don't you stop me.
Oh.
Smead, stop me. He's about to kill himself.
We've unlocked my father and I quoting Hook. So for the next 10 minutes.
That's right.
There you are, Peter. Welcome back, Pan the Man. You nearsighted. Well, we won't go there. Okay. So you know then, since you sign off on everything, that I've started doing some lightning round would you rather questions. So I want you guys to not overthink this. I want you just to answer naturally. And
naturally?
Yeah, what?
Versus supernatural?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we're going to start off with Emerson Eggerichs. Would you rather, and this is because of something that you love, it's a part of your daily lifestyle, would you rather drink coffee every day, as you do multiple times a day, with your eyes closed, or only get to have coffee once a month, but with your eyes wide open? Also, in the first scenario, you have a constant depth perception problem.
Well, I drink my coffee with my eyes closed anyway, so I'm going to go with number one, regardless of the depth perception problem. But I mean, coffee, why would I choose coffee once a month with my eyes wide open?
If your eyes are closed and you have a depth perception problem, it's going to be all over you. You're not going to know where the cup begins in your mouth.
Well, but that's an easy thing. I'd rather have coffee all over me than to have coffee not at all.
All right, well, that's...
Then he could keep smelling it.
Yeah, there. It's going to be fun for you, Mom.
Yeah.
Okay, would you rather be... This is still Dad. Would you rather be renamed as Eggnog Emerich or John Doe 2?
John Doe 2.
All right. Would you rather have to take care of 3 indoor cats or 1 Dalmatian dog named Fire that you have to loudly call inside every night?
Oh, the latter, because that was true. Good old Fire.
Yeah. My dad had quite a few dogs growing up, and in the brilliance of my father as a child, named the Dalmatian Fire, because they're always on fire trucks. And then what happened? Didn't one of your neighbors end up...
Well, I got lost, and so I'm running through the neighborhood screaming, "Fire!" And Mrs. Lentz came out and said, "Where?" She was all in a panic, and I was appreciative of the fact
You're
that
like,
she was,
I don't know. I
That's
don't know.
and that was exactly, I don't know. And there was this disconnect, and she was livid with me. And that was one of those boyhood innocent moments. And she was absolutely convinced some house was burning, people were in danger, and I'm being sarcastic with her.
Oh, that's good.
It was a funny moment. It's still vivid in my mind. Where? I don't know.
Who's on first?
I am calling fire.
Okay, moving along to Sarah Eggerichs. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, this also taps into things that you love.
Okay.
Would you rather be able to do perfect calligraphy but have to handwrite all correspondence, even emails that way, or have completely illegible penmanship. And in the first scenario, you have to respond to all of your emails, even the junk ones.
Oh, yeah, but you can't do calligraphy on email.
I'm just saying you have to find out the address of where these emails are coming from, and you have to handwrite responses to them.
Oh, the second one.
Oh, wow. You're never going to communicate. Okay.
Have terrible handwriting?
What? It's illegible. Like you can do technology, I suppose, but you'd never be able to write a note again. So I know you value writing notes, and I know you love calligraphy.
Well, maybe I'd do the first one then.
All right. Well, have fun
writing
emails to Amazon.com for the rest of your life.
Because I would like to perfect my calligraphy.
I know. Yeah. Okay. Would you rather, again, two things that you love, would you rather be Jack Bauer in 24 or Tommy Lee Jones's character in The Fugitive?
Let's see, I got to do this fast. Well, I still think Jack Bauer.
Waterboarding it is? All right. Would you rather have to drink coffee every morning with Dad? Side note. She doesn't drink coffee. If you watch the Monday morning updates, you would know that she tried it for the first time with me, but doesn't like it. Would you rather have to drink coffee every morning with Dad or be married to him while he has no depth perception?
I'd rather drink coffee with him every day.
Well, you can start tomorrow morning. Okay.
Really?
What?
I really wish I did drink coffee because I like the smell and that would be fun to do with him. But I just have tea.
Yeah, well, there's always time to grow.
That's right.
Okay, so tell people who may not know a little bit about your love story. Just a couple minutes each. What I like is when people tell their love story, but they interrupt each other. And I know you both are really polite, but just jump in and tell things that you remember. Just a couple minutes about dating, engagement, and when you were first married. I know your rent was really high in your first place. $25 a week?
That was after we were married.
Yeah.
I know.
After you're married. Well, what I remember is that I had met this guy, at dinner in November, and we had just come back from Thanksgiving break. Which
No. I thought I just practiced
interrupt. I knew that's what he was doing. They were at Wheaton College in Chicago.
Wheaton College. A mutual friend invited about 9 or 10 of us to dinner that night. We'd just come back from break. And we were sitting there all talking, or he introduced all of us, and I knew some of the people, but I didn't know him. Mm-hmm. And so then everybody was just kind of talking to the person across from them, and he heard me talking about my old boyfriend, right? Remember that?
Girls, that's a tip.
And then in January, well, I kept seeing him on campus then, and he would say hi to me. He always remembered my name.
And what's your thought process at this point, Dad? Were you just good at remembering people's names, or were you like, that girl?
Well, that's a good question. But I do remember asking Mark Riso, who was kind of the guy that organized the whole group afterwards, tell me about Sarah. So backstory, I was exploring who she was, what kind of a person she was.
Doing a little recon
and
work.
He was giving glowing reports about her. And so that's more my recollection than why did I remember her name.
But do you remember if you were at that dinner, wasn't it annoying that she was talking about an ex-boyfriend?
I don't remember being annoyed other than the fact that maybe there was an opportunity for me. Isn't that your clue to the gals out there?
Well, no, I'm just wondering how you were interpreting it. So she was obviously complaining about the ex-boyfriend?
No, Mark was just asking me about whatever happened to Jim.
I see.
That's what he asked me, and so I told him.
Yeah, I didn't think in terms of, but I would assume, clearly that sent a message that she was available.
Okay.
Ex-boyfriend.
Then he kept seeing me on campus, and we were very friendly, but I could not remember his name. He could remember mine. And I just thought, what is that guy's name? Well, I finally figured it out and everything. But then...
Do you want to share with everybody what he went by in college? Because it wasn't Emerson.
It was Eddie.
Eddie.
Because my dad is Emerson Edwin Eggerichs Sr., and I'm Emerson Edwin.
And he was
Eggerichs
Eddie
Jr.
growing up.
But
And
what growing up, Mom? What was the little boy in school that you couldn't stand?
Eddie
Oh,
Westerfield.
well, wait a minute. This is going worldwide. We might be liable now.
Eddie Westerfield, if you're out there and you're listening to this,
We forgive you.
you were
totally.
mean to me next door.
Well, we understand it was a childhood issue. Please don't sue us.
But anyway, so I just always thought, please, God, don't let me marry anyone
Named
named
Eddie.
God
was-
doesn't always answer our prayers.
I know. So I was sure this wasn't God.
But I was an answer to prayer.
So anyway, January 31st, 1971, I run into him. Oh no, I'm studying in the college in a college study thing on a Sunday afternoon, and he walked in, and I look up. There was a whole bunch of people in the room. I look up because I heard the door open, and I thought, oh, there's that guy that keeps saying hi to me on campus.
Creepy.
But then he came and sat down across from me. And I look up and he goes, hi. And we began talking. And within about 5 minutes, I thought, I think he's trying to ask me out for a date.
Was he nervous?
No, he was just asking me, what are you doing? What are you working on? I said, oh, just some philosophy paper. I said, I'm getting a head start. He goes, when's it due? And I said, Wednesday. That was a really big head start. Oh, philosophy, it was the bane of my existence in college. But anyway, so then pretty soon he asked me and I said, sure. So we went out. And then I find out later that he had called this Mark, found out my room or my phone number, called my roommate. She told him where I was.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and you
know what you said about me later in retrospect what you liked about me that moment.
Well, Sarah has always been friendly and genuine, and as we say, comfortable in her own skin. There was no pretense about her. She just kind of lit up, and I
mean, anything to get out of writing that.
Yeah. But
you would not be married today if she liked philosophy class.
Yeah, but I think again it's that whole issue, and if you know, both men and women, if we try to project something that we're not, eventually it's going to surface. And so part of what I remember is I could just tell there were some people that were genuine, the real deal, and others weren't, and I knew immediately she's just very comfortable, and she's always been liked by everybody. Her family of origin, everybody thought she was the rose in the midst of many thorns, so to speak, but Miss Congeniality of Boone County. So, I mean, Mom's always just been sanguine and personable, and that was very attractive to me.
Well, was it her grandma that didn't even think that you were good enough for her?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How'd that play out?
Yeah, well, we talked through the years about, even at the wedding, we have a video of her in the receiving line walking around me and going over to Mom, and she, is just peculiar to me.
So what did she think of you? What was her...
We don't know. No, we do know. Remember, you came to church that time.
Corduroy jacket or something?
Corduroy jacket and cowboy boots.
I mean,
and
this is Indiana cool. Farm girl. I mean, I don't understand. So I think the real root is no one was going to be good enough for her.
Yeah.
I think that it was more rooted in her own anxiety that someone would pursue her that wasn't good enough for her, and I think that was perhaps her attitude.
You looked like a rebel dad.
Exactly. Well, in fact, I did. I had a goatee at one point, and the hair back.
He had huge hair. I still don't understand that. You really didn't perm it?
No.
Well, no. I mean, it's. But you remember at Wheaton, we had the freshman uprising, and I was instigating that along with several others, and then the upper class.
Explain that. Explain what your freshman uprising was.
We let everybody know on campus that the freshmen are here, so we all gathered at the fountain, and Steve Sandquist and myself kind of gave the cheers, and we're letting everybody know we're here. And then,
but what were you saying? That's what I guess I don't know the specifics of that. Were you we're?
Who knows what we said? It was verbose. We're the freshmen have arrived. I mean, who knows what I did other than provoke the upperclassmen significantly? And someone said, "You better lock your door." So I did, not thinking that they would be, having access to the master key because they were dorm. Whatever, RAs and resident assistant there. So about 12 guys, 3 a.m. in the morning, dressed up in India paraphernalia, all yeah, Indian. They had, all the paint on the, everything. I mean,
We
they
call
had,
that
they were
Native
all,
American now.
yeah, Native American. Yeah, well, it's true. And so they grabbed me and tied me up and then took us out into an open field and shaved me bald. And so whatever happened, my hair kind of came out
Yeah.
differently a little bit there for a while. To answer your question, it was weird, but I ran for class president and said, "Get ahead with Ed," and everybody knew who I was, and I was elected. So you turn lemons into lemonade, but it was
And that
quite a
was the
memory.
end of his political career.
But you knew you didn't come until the next year.
Right.
See,
So I wasn't
I
there.
was there as a freshman. She was still in high school, but that next year then is when all this took place.
And so then you guys, you got married and you still lived in Wheaton. And Mom, you were a teacher. And what were
I
you
was doing student teaching right after we got finished my last semester. We got married in September. I did my student teaching, and he was working on his master's degree there at Wheaton.
in communications, right? That's when you started that. And your rent was $25 a week.
Yes.
And you went into a downward spiral when you found out there was a month that had a fifth week.
We had everything budgeted to the T, and we get this bill for $125.
1973.
Yeah, it was really, really, we just like, what are we going to do? I mean, we had saved, we had enough money for our rent and everything like that. But, it was truly also like one of those times when we just, like, we trusted God. We prayed, and we talked with the woman, and we had to pay. She said it was $25 a week, and she was right. But it was just neat things like that in those early days, and we didn't just had enough to get by, but we got by, and we learned to trust God.
And
it really
and
was.
not to trust 84-year-old widows.
Yeah. She knew what she was doing.
It was kind of like my grandmother.
She was like 4'6", remember?
Not
And
6. We're at 6. That would be
well,
about
I mean 4'8". What do you want?
well, she was about 5 foot.
5 foot, but she prided herself on being so strong. Remember the time she
Yes.
wanted to lift me up? So she literally
What?
lifted me off the ground. Yeah,
Yes, she won. This woman, Mrs. Phillips was her name.
Mrs. Phillips.
She's like, let's talk about signing this rental contract and get on my back. Let me show you what I can do. Well, okay, so that's a little bit about your love story, but life really began when you had your third child, me.
Yes. And after 2 boys, what could you name a girl but Joy?
So great. But actually, I just found out this fall, for the first time in my life, that Dad wanted to stop after 2 kids. Shall we talk about that?
But
He just thought, he said, maybe we should just stop with 2 kids. He didn't say we are not.
She's trying to backpedal now, but
It's true.
I mean, I've been talking with my therapist about it all fall.
He can't remember.
But see, the redeeming factor is when you came, I said, it's our miracle child.
Yeah, right. Okay, wait. So I guess, there's a little bit of your love story, and I would think that a lot of people on the outside, seeing you guys travel together all the time, and you do marriage conferences together, and you've now made yourself conjoined twins. I feel like it's helpful for people to hear stories, and I know you share stories at the conference and in your book and everything about fights that you guys get into. I know you don't like to call it fights, heated fellowship.
Fellowship.
Yes, we all.
That's just our most recent vocabulary word.
That's the spiritual spin on it.
I've heard it years ago.
He heard it
heated
years
fellowship.
ago, but he all started saying it. I thought, well, that's interesting. I've never heard him say that before.
But can you think of a specific scenario, either something that you guys always kind of get on the crazy cycle, as you call it, about, or a specific story that you haven't shared of a doozy of a heated argument that you got in, and kind of I think it's just important for people to know that you're not perfect. I can attest.
Huh?
What'd you say?
I said I can attest. But you guys are normal, you're real, and you talk about, as scripture says.
Well, and even in the last couple of years, because we do business, we're 24/7, we're together all the time, and she's vice president, I'm president, and so her role sometimes is to help me do what I do better, and that irritates me because she's trying to be helpful. I know she's trying to be helpful, but I don't need, so that creates tension. And one of the things that we know, 70% of all businesses.
But we all know that it would crumble without her.
Yeah, exactly.
Either one of us would be able to get on a flight if it wasn't for Mom.
Yeah. Well, that's you would never come home,
I
right?
know.
And
I do not know how to book tickets.
what did she do when she was taking care of you out there?
What?
What did she do when she was out there with you?
Oh, well, she came out because we thought maybe I was going to have surgery on my foot after I broke it. And then we found out that I didn't. And she's like, well, let's just clean up your whole apartment and get rid of stuff and we'll just have everything organized within I mean, I was like, please, I'm still in a cast, woman. She's very efficient. Very.
Exactly.
Such a slave driver.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I think it gives hope to people at family businesses. 70% of all businesses are family run, family related, and it creates this internal tension. And so we felt that as well. And how do you address those issues when you're together 24/7? How do you change roles? And so we've had and we're still addressing how do you do that dance, and that's frustrating. But at the same time, we want to give people hope that it's part and parcel. There's as I always say, there's only one couple that was perfect, Adam and Eve, and look what happened to them.
Yeah. Well, so what do you guys do when you get into your arguments? I mean, what's your kind of typical behaviors?
Well, we argue over you, and so I say, let's get rid of her. I mean, that would solve our problems.
No, but what are the things that annoy you guys about each other? If you're comfortable sharing that.
You mean in terms of the administrative stuff?
Well, no, maybe you go first.
Yeah.
Well, like me repeating things to him.
No, what annoys you about him?
That I don't listen.
Me repeating things to him that I've told him, a few things, and no, I haven't quite done that yet. It's on my list. Where's the list?
We're going to have Joy tonight on Skype. What time? Well, she said about 3:30. Then now it's 4. Now it's 4:30. Now it's 5. At a certain point, I don't listen anymore. I just will show up.
Or like he'll say, when are we leaving for the airport? And like I've already told him a couple times. And so then I feel like, okay, he's not listening to me when he asks. He asks because it's reassuring to him that I know. So, and I think he has an assurance that, I will keep track of all these things. And so,
do you feel like if you were less responsible and less gifted in the area of administration, that he would actually? Because I feel like that's how I am. I feel like if I'm traveling with someone who's really together, I just like go into lackadaisical mode. But if that person's a nightmare, then I'm like type A to the max.
Yeah.
So maybe it's time to retrain Dad. That's what I'm getting at.
Let me go.
Fly the nest.
And what about you, Dad? What annoys you about Mom? I don't mean.
No, I mean, I think as I've said to her, it's always goodwill. It's always care. It's rooted in care. And there's no easy answer because she's correct in what she talks about. At the same time, it's not like I'm fishing. It's like I'm producing content. I'm doing this, and so it's just the tension of I'm doing my thing. She's trying to help remind me of other things, and really, when you get on overload, you have so many things you got to take care of. It's just like we want to give some Thanksgiving messages to our people, and they needed 3, and so she said, well, did you get the other ones done? And and then Krista needs it by and so I'm taking a shower, and now I've got to get this done before we're on, and it piles on, and so the tension arises simply because we have more to do each day than the time to do it in some ways.
Yeah.
And I think then I remember years ago, I cannot remember how long we'd been married or whatever, but I can remember, being frustrated about something. I have no idea to this day what it is because I forget things, like I forget what I did yesterday. And I think that is one thing with us is we do keep short accounts, and we don't keep bringing things up. We don't let stuff fester. That is one thing I think that we
both know we have goodwill, and that's a huge thing. Even though we're irritated with each other, we don't go deeper in saying you're a ill-willed person, or you don't value me, or you don't whatever.
And I think that's how this one day on the sidewalk in East Lansing, Michigan, it was just like God spoke to me. This is even before we did Love and Respect, and I remember, because goodwill is such a big part of our Love and Respect message. And I can remember God saying to me, but he's a good man. And I remember thinking, that is right. He is kind. He is loving. He will do anything I ask him to do. He doesn't always think of things, because he's always thinking. And I remember used to think, most men take out the garbage. Most men, it just seems to me like most men take out the garbage. That's our kind of philosophy in our marriage has been whoever can does, and it's like, I grew up with a single mom. I took out the garbage. I did a lot of these kinds of things. I grew up on a farm. I'm a handy woman, So it's like when he was writing Love and Respect, I mowed the yard all the time. He would feel bad about that sometimes. He goes, Sarah, I just feel so bad at how that, I should be mowing the yard. I said, honey, I can't write books. So I think it's that whole thing of realizing what are some people good at and what are, I'm not good at that.
And now that we've written the book and it's sold well, we hire somebody to cut the grass. See?
But see, here's the other thing. I like to cut grass. I liked to mow the yard. I like to do those things. So it's like, I like to carry out. I like to get the garbage out. That doesn't bother me,
I seriously get exhausted watching. Like, I feel like my feelings of insecurity and inadequacy as a woman is the fact that I know I will never be as efficient as you. Can we talk about me for a second?
Yeah. But mom would say that she can't do on a public platform what
like
you
can do.
Each of us have talents and gifts, and it's a matter of not guilt tripping the other because, whatever reason. It's that whole issue of coming to a point of appreciating a person's strengths and not condemning them where they may not have the same interest. It's not that people can't do certain things, but we all have standards, we all have images, and then we personalize. If this person isn't doing that, then it must mean this. And same thing, when she takes out the garbage, or the other day you were doing something, it embarrasses me because sometimes I think, whoa, I should be doing that, and then I feel like I'm not fulfilling my manly role. And yet what I'm doing, very few people do. And so if we spend all of our time, doing these other things, we don't get done what no one else can do. And it's a matter of coming to a point of humility and allowing for that. And she enjoys doing certain things. And
I know that allows him to focus, to stay focused. So anyway, that's kind of, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, that's good. Okay, so I just realized that I flashed this thing on. Do you know what this is, Mom?
Yes.
You roll it on your hand,
yeah.
right?
It's it's your father's, Grandpa Paget. I have something from each of your parents. This is all I had, Grandpa Paget's. This is Grandpa Choo Choo, because he worked on the railroad, your father's sweater that I wear all the time. This is your mom's watch, and these are Grammy JJ, Dad, your mom's mother, her earrings, representing something from all of your parents symbolically. Actually, minus the hand roller, this is like staple. I wear these things multiple times a week. Anyways, but I think what?
I'm glad you don't wear the roller.
Yeah, I take it with me to coffee shops. Probably why I'm single. Like, hey, just preparing for arthritis, guys. Anyways, so I think something that's really unique about you guys is that I grew up loving all of my grandparents and thinking that they were amazing. Except, of course, when Grandma Martha wouldn't let me put my Beauty and the Beast sheets on the way that I wanted, so it wasn't proper. haven't let go of that one. But I just thought all my grandparents were amazing. But obviously, as I got older, I knew that, you all grew up in really unstable environments, especially you, Dad. But then obviously, Mom, your dad was married multiple times. There's just a lot of divorce in your family. So you guys came out of stuff that was just what some people would assume wasn't the setup for success. Obviously, everybody matured and chose to follow the Lord later in life. And so I knew amazing grandparents. But when you guys were younger, it wasn't that great. And so I know that I hear from a lot of people, that'll be like, oh, I'm so scared to get married because my parents were divorced, or I grew up around abuse or whatever. And so, and they even see the patterns in themselves that are similar to their parents. And so what kind of things have you guys noticed, or like, did you bring in where you were like, oh, you're being like your mother, or you're being like your father, or whatever, and how did you guys deal with that and the fear of repeating their mistakes?
Well, I think, again, the hope that we try to give people is that, where we learned this, or, early on, I'm not quite sure, but somehow I think we both recognize that that we don't have to become what our parents were or our extended family. I mean, I think both of us somehow sensed that we were free, to go a different way. I think that truth, just seemed to be deep within us. And I think the question really is what contributed to that. And certainly the research, as we pointed out, bears that out. You can compensate for your upbringing or you can imitate your upbringing. It's a choice that all of us make. Some of us make excuses because all of us have sin. All of us fall short. There's no perfect person. And we always try to assign some reason for that. We end up assigning blame to that. A lot of us blame our parents for the way we are, and we keep justifying it rather than saying, you know what, I don't know all that my dad did or mom did or whatever, but there comes a moment when you say, regardless of how they are, I'm going to try to own up to this and realize that empowers me rather than shames me. And particularly because you don't want to repeat what you saw them do, but to realize we're free. We're not slaves. We don't have to repeat what they did. And I think that's a message of liberation.
And I think through the years, I really have been amazed at you, especially because your dad had such rage issues, that he has been so totally the opposite of that. I mean, Joy, I know you don't remember him as an angry man, and I can say I don't live with an angry man. It's just amazing to me when I look back, and again, I loved his father. I loved his father very much. But as a child growing up before he knew Christ, your dad, it wasn't good memories for him. But he made, he just made this choice. And I remember early in our marriage, well, no, I don't know if it was early, maybe, years into it, maybe 10, I don't know. I'm just guessing at the time. But I just remember thinking, he didn't come from a very great background, and I didn't come from a really, what would be ideal. And yet I felt very loved. But I was like, wow, how did we even believe we could do this?
Yeah.
No, that's what just astounds me, is that we went into it with like, we're not victims. We can start over. We can have like a clean slate. And so anyway, I just remember him saying, we recognize people make mistakes.
Yeah.
Well,
we made a difference.
Yeah. I think we would definitely attribute our relationship with Christ, the message of Christ that she heard as a young girl, and then I heard at age 16. That clearly allowed us to believe that God does work all things together for good, that where there is sin, grace abounds. These become precious truths to us, that we're not damaged goods, that there is this hope that God has a way. In the Old Testament, Joseph said to his brothers, what you intended for evil, God planned for good to bring about this present result. These truths in Scripture, do create a new script in your mind about, because I think many people really start feeling like they are hopeless because they have been hurt. And we take the message that we may be wounded, but we then can become the wounded healer, that God has a way of turning things around in a positive sense.
Well, and I agree with that, because I do feel like, I would say, well, I'll speak for you and me. I do think that we have that kind of that thing from the anger thing from Grandpa, and I think you've shared stories of when you were younger of exploding, and when you grabbed the knife and threatened to kill your dad and stuff like that. So, and I know that I struggle with getting angry, but what I saw in you growing up, there were times where I knew you were upset, but you learned to temper that. I think you learned to so we didn't grow up in an environment where it was explosive at all. And so I think that when people are like, well, I just have a problem with anger, and it's like, well, I do too, but like there's also the ability to, learn to control those things. You don't have to explode in front of your children. And if you guys ever did anything growing up, like, I think it was really impacting that you would come and seek our forgiveness, And I think, a ton of my friends have little kids now, and you obviously just wrote the book, Love and Respect in the Family, because that's what you got your PhD in, family studies. And so I think one of the things that I know a lot of my friends would probably wonder about is how do parents discipline when you guys disagree about how to discipline your kids?
Mm-hmm. Well, and you want to address that, the teamwork idea.
We our marriage was the most important thing. And so we knew that that was the best way to have teamwork, is if we worked on our marriage.
Yeah.
And then if we did disagree on what we should do, in a discipline situation, we disagreed behind closed doors, because we wanted to come to a conclusion, that we were both going to be on the same page about, so that you kids knew we were a united front.
Yeah.
And I think, as you say in the book, if we were going to be wrong, we were going to be wrong together.
Yeah.
And what we decided to do.
Yeah, that was always difficult, trying to pit you guys against one another. The only time we could kind of get things changed is if you were in separate areas of the house, and it was like a quick, like if Dad was doing something, can I do this? Da, da, da. And then if he said yes, and then we could go back and be like, Dad said I could. Got him. Didn't have time to think.
Yeah. Well, and and that your friends who are young parents, I mean, the problem is there are these everyday decisions, and sometimes, the mother feels one way strongly, and the father is feeling maybe the other way, and at some point we're going to have to believe that we both bring something to the table that maybe the other doesn't, and try to figure out, that we both bring strengths, because I find husbands and wives, suddenly the children now become the reason that they are at odds with each other, and the children now become the way in which they're trying to take control, or who's in charge, or who's smarter, or who knows more. And then this becomes damaging, not only in the marriage, but also to the children. And that's why I've said, unless there's a clear intrinsic evil, Hebrews says we do what seems best as parents. We do what seems best. There's a subjective element there. And so it's important that we realize that on any given day, maybe it's not the best of decisions, but if our hearts are in the right place, it's more important that we be united. United we stand, divided we fall. And children do divide and conquer. They don't want to, but they're selfish in a short term, but they expect us to be adults. And if we continue to let the children determine what's right because they whine and they get in between us, it just simply does not do the child any good whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, and ultimately, if they're causing tension in the marriage, then that's going to create a feeling they don't realize of instability for themselves. And we were talking about that the other day. I was heard about this couple who they have kids in high school, and they were like, we cannot wait for you guys to get out of the house, and it was in a jest way, but like I was talking with my friends about how those kids feel so safe in that home. Like, even though their parents are joking about them leaving, they know their parents are so happy to be together that it's just this feeling, it makes them feel loved to know that their parents love each other. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I have learned as I directed your conferences, and then for the last many, many years doing Love and Respect and talking about relationships. I think friendship seems to be this key that, like, when I look at couples that are making it work and couples that are not, and I think it's kind of synonymous with you talking about goodwill, but couples who just remember that they're friends with each other is so key. And so I think people would probably be curious to know what your specific friendship looks like. Like, how are you guys friends? Like, what do you do? And how did you kind of, foster that friendship as you were having 3 young kids?
Well, I'll tell you, the thing that he contributed to the relationship was that he's funny.
Yeah.
Now, I did not know he was funny before I married him. He was pretty serious, pretty intense, and I fell in love with his person and respected his character and who I saw him wanting to be. But that was that's been the best thing for our relationship, is that he he laughs at himself.
More than anyone else.
That's right.
Because I'm funny, okay?
And he can tell the same joke so many times.
I think he laughs harder the more he tells his jokes.
That's right.
Because they're good jokes.
But I realized that one day, and even when you kids were little, and he would, bring lightness to the thing, he'd look at me and he'd go, I know, I need to make you laugh more. Remember that?
I think, yeah.
You'd say, I need to make you laugh more.
Yeah, because you would say that, Mom. I can remember that now. You would go, you need to make me laugh more.
Yeah. And then, and it's like, because I was the more serious of the two. I mean, I used to joke, if he didn't make it in the ministry, could be a comedian.
Yeah, but you guys were both you're both very serious people and then very lighthearted in different ways. So
Yeah.
like you're serious because you like care so much about people and the family and the house and all that stuff. And then you're lighthearted in that you want to be around friends and you care about your friends and you want to have a good time and you're always smiling. Whereas Dad, you're very, very serious in that you're always thinking and you're in your head, and then you're very funny because you can entertain yourself.
So that's, I mean, that really is, I mean, that's been a gift to our friendship, is him just being,
One thing, you do that thing where you would go, every night you made like 15 minutes where you would leave us kids.
Yeah, you were still in the high chair. Jonathan was old enough.
You were 18.
Yeah. I'm having so much fun. You guys unstrap me before you go? Thanks.
But anyway, that we did. There was I don't even know how long we did that, but I can remember when it began was when you were in the high chair. I remember thinking, this is such freedom.
Joy's strapped in.
Jonathan, she's strapped in. Jonathan can watch her, and we can have 15 minutes just to catch up from the day. And we did that for quite a while. And we had a date night.
What would you guys do in your date night? I don't remember that. I remember 100% devotion to me.
What'd you say?
I remember 100% devotion to me.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, we either we did something, went to, get a bite to eat or something. I mean, we didn't stay very long because babysitters were expensive like they are today. I don't even know how people can afford to go out because.
Remember Amy Ament? She would always bring stickers.
Oh.
Loved her.
Yeah, sweet.
Oh, you can remember those babysitters, but I think it's the 15-minute incremental thing every night. And I tell people that's one way. It's not, some guys feel overwhelmed by, the friendship means we got to talk face to face for a couple hours every night. So he starts avoiding it. And then the women move towards. So there's got to be a compromise. And that is it's called frequency, not duration. That you're doing it every night for a little bit. And Mom always would set the alarm,
Well, did you hate doing it? Was it?
No, but I think, again, we recognized Mom had all these burdens, with you and then with you.
You didn't care.
Yeah. And, and we know, generally speaking, women want to express what they're feeling on many different fronts. And part of that role as a husband is to hear her, not give solutions. And Mom would have her list of things to talk about. And it's not true for all women, and it's not true for all men, but generally it's pretty true. And so it works if a man, a lot of guys start avoiding their wives because it feels like here's another, negative conversation about something, and it's going to turn on me. And so then this creates serious tension. And the friendship then starts getting undermined. It's not a friendly relationship. She's not laughing, and he doesn't feel she likes him. And so what's an answer to that? One of the answers for us was we created that predictability for her, but that I wasn't going to be overwhelmed, each night or every other night with something that was, too long. And the timer was set because you kids were waiting. And so, and then we get on the next night. And there were nights, eventually, what I say to people, you go on, you do that for months. There were many times Mom said, I really don't have anything to talk about. Everything's up to date.
Yeah. And I do think that's part of our friendship too, was that I said earlier, we kept short accounts. Again, if you get married, you not sin, but you will have trouble. And, there's going to be that heated fellowship. There are going to be those differences of opinion or you say something that deflates the other person. And so we just, we took care of those things. And, and that's, that helps build a friendship. Yeah. And we really, I think we parented with the end in mind, meaning
you leaving.
We knew that you guys would be gone someday, and we wanted to have a lasting friendship.
That's how he dances, folks. That's how we got her. Well, I guess on that, I think probably people are curious too. Obviously, you both are very passionate about the work that you do, and I would say, like, what advice would you give to people about just motivation? And you've obviously been doing this for a number of years, and from what I can tell, as your daughter, you guys aren't gonna really stop until you kick the bucket. So, what keeps you going? What's the balance that you guys have between work and life?
Well, one thing is we've made a decision years back And I think I told you that. You're not going to use the word stressed out. This just was not going to be a part of our vocabulary. If we're getting stressed out, then something needs to give. We need to pull back and not lose our peace. I think that's one thing that we've just both always worked at. And when you lose that peace, then step back and say, okay, what can you readjust here? And again, there's different seasons. We didn't really start doing this until you guys, you were a senior in high school when we left the pastorate and began Love and Respect ministry. So, but we were talking the other day just about the fact of we've always, from the time we first met, it was like we knew that our life, we wanted to have something bigger than ourselves, beyond just, our marriage and beyond just, our family as such. And so, we've just made it, this is our goal to keep serving Christ until we kick the bucket or we're in the, when a few years ago, I remember when we first started, he said, it takes about 20 years to get a message out. So when we were about halfway through, which at a 10-year mark, I said, oh, well, we're kind of halfway there. And he goes, oh, I forgot to tell you, I think it's going to take 30. So I've decided we're going to be doing Love and Respect in the retirement home. But at least we have technology.
Hey, love blossoms in there. I was just visiting Dorothy last night at the old folks home, and she was talking about the male nurse, and she was like, if I was 50 years younger. Cut it out, Dorothy.
Yeah.
That's great. What?
I was going to say, what would you say to that?
Well, no, I think you said it well. I think you did.
It well.
You did. She said it perfectly.
I thought it kind of a neat thing the other day. I don't know if this is going along with what we're saying, but we were just having dinner and, we kind of have this thing about talking about, death, and we've just kind of always been like that in our family. We visit cemeteries on vacations and stuff, and Joy goes to a cemetery every day. But we were talking what if we knew we just had a little bit of time to live? And I loved your answer.
Well, it's Luther. He was asked that question. What would you do if, I think it was Luther, what would you do if you knew today was the last day you're going to live? He said, I'd plant a tree. And I think the point he was making, at least I've understood it to be, is that we should be living our lives in such a way that there should be no difference.
Yeah.
If we do something majorly different, then we're really not living in light of eternity. Today should be lived in such a way that this may be our last day. And if suddenly we're going to make a radical shift, then we need to reevaluate our priorities.
Yeah.
And not that Luther was into planting trees, but I think the point was, you should, you just keep doing what you've always been doing, given that you're doing what God wants you to do. That's kind of the mindset. But
it seems like, maybe I'm projecting this too, but also the mindset of what am I doing today that will leave a legacy for, beyond when I am gone. Right. And I think that's something that people don't think about as much. I feel like there was always people that were like, I'm gonna do this for my grandchildren's generation, and I think it's harder to think about the future in this day and age. I don't know if I'm just projecting that, but that's what it feels like. So,
well, I think when people get older, there is this thing that's referred to as generativity, and that there comes a moment in everybody's life when they think in terms of what am I leaving here, and that's why it doesn't always hit a person in their 20s. It doesn't hit a person maybe in their 40s or 50s, but you start getting 60, 70, you begin to realize, what was my life about? What am I leaving? Who am I? And that's partly why people get depressed, because in some ways they realize they didn't live their life in a way that had value. And but hopefully all of us can learn from that and realize there's going to come a moment when this is all going to have to end. And we look back, will we have contributed something? And I think that's why we're excited, because we're grateful and humbled by the fact that we feel like we've made a contribution and are making a contribution. We're helping to make a difference. And many people who are making widgets will often say to me, I wish I was doing something that really mattered. And my heart goes out to individuals. But at the same time, we can trust that the Lord can use us where we're at, making widgets, as long as we give that day over to him, because he was a carpenter for many years. So it's not like
he noticed the widow,
That's right.
Yeah.
He recognizes what the world would consider foolish, he considers wise, as long as our hearts, and that's the posture of the heart. We are not wasted. God can take where we're at and do something significant. He can show up. And a lot of times it's not so much what we get from God's hand, it's seeing God's hand. And it's not what's in it, but it's just seeing it and allowing him in our daily experiences to show up, to use us, to encourage us. And that's the message of hope to people who feel like they're stuck.
Yeah. Well, I would say that being your daughter, and I'm going to say something nice now.
We paid you.
That I have noticed is that you guys do. I feel like I have been around a number of people that are in positions similar to you, and I do feel like you don't have a clamp on it. Like there's very much like you hold it loosely, and you're kind of like, this is what we're gonna do. If we're gonna be used, if we're gonna make impact, we will, and if that's taken from us, that's okay too. You both are hard workers. But I don't feel like you don't have this, and it's caused tension sometimes because I'm like, come on, Dad, make this video, do that. And, but I have really learned so much from you guys about being patient, even with, all these years of doing my blogs. I think a lot of people just want to write a blog and post it. And you've made me sit on everything that I write and I have it be edited and have you guys read it and sitting on stuff. Like I had someone call me the other day that wants to be a blogger, and I was able to just say, like, I can see over the last 5+ years of blogging that there has been nothing wrong with having to wait for weeks before I post. And I just think that that's something really beautiful that I've learned from you guys. You're just holding it loosely, wisdom and waiting, and you just kind of you're just trucking forward and trusting the Lord. So I respect that about you both. So, well, I figure we should probably just end on talking about cemeteries, death, and me giving you some nice words. But actually we will. I went to Twitter and I asked people, I said, I'm going to ask my parents some would you rather questions. And so I pulled one that I thought would work for you guys because it does, you guys both work out. And this one says, it's from Cynthia Klauber. Would you rather have to walk on a treadmill every time you eat or walk on a treadmill every time you speak?
Eat.
Mom?
Me too.
All right, well, that's going to make Thanksgiving awkward.
But then it's neutral. I mean, you've broken it.
Yeah, but just think, you're going to have to carry a portable treadmill with you to every restaurant you go to.
Well, that's fine. I mean, give me some more ice cream.
Oh, he just walks in. I have this beautiful scene of you walking into Old Country Buffet. You both have your treadmills. You're like, we're going to be here for a while. Put on your sweatpants. Nancy, keep bringing me the soft serve. Sprinkles. All right, I could keep going. All right, well, love you guys. Thank you for doing this. I'm sure it's going to be helpful to many people.
Thank you, and thanks for honoring us, Joy.
Thanks, kid.
We love you.
Kid.